So Rome thought it was over. They thought they won. They stood at the foot of the cross on Friday afternoon. Rome stood there. The temple establishment stood there. The fearful crowd stood there. And they all folded their arms and said the same thing. Well, that's the end of that. They nailed a man to wood. They drove iron through flesh. They hoisted him up on a hill outside of Jerusalem where the whole city could see what happens when someone refuses to cooperate with power. Rome has been doing this for centuries. They were very good at it. You don't build the greatest empire in the ancient world without knowing exactly how to silence the voices that threaten you. And they thought that Friday was the end. But here we are on Sunday morning. We are here, we are loud, and we are alive. We are the continuation of something they could not kill, could not bury, could not silence, because the Romans did not understand what they were dealing with. They thought they were executing a man. They were actually igniting a movement defined by 3 words: love above all. So let us tell the truth this morning. The raw, historical, academic, honest truth. No mythology, no magic, just the story. And the story is enough. Jesus of Nazareth was a Jewish man, a carpenter's son from Galilee, from the north, a region Rome called a backwater, and the temple establishment barely took seriously. Jesus grew up under occupation. He learned to read the world through the eyes of the poor, the forgotten, the pushed aside. He watched Rome extract everything from people who had nothing left. He watched the temple, God's house, become a marketplace to serve the powerful and crush the destitute. And at some point, this human man made a human decision. I will not be silent. That was the first rebellion. Not a rebellion of sword, not a rebellion of armies. A rebellion of love. Fierce, scandalous, boundary-breaking love. A love that sat down at wrong tables. A love that touched the ones no one else would touch. A love that looked the poor in the eye and said, you are not forgotten. A love that walked into the most surveilled, most politically charged location in all of Judea, the temple courtyard, during Passover. And then he flipped the tables of the money changers and said out loud in public in front of thousands of pilgrims, this is wrong. That was no accident. That was a choice Jesus made. That was love above self in action. And it cost him everything. Rome did not crucify people for religious reasons. Don't let 2,000 years of manufactured theology confuse you about that. Rome crucified people to send a message. A body on a cross outside on the road was not punishment. It was a billboard. It said, look at this, remember this, and know your place, and keep moving. Rome thought crucifixion was the period at the end of the sentence. But here is what they did not count on. Here is the thing that empires never understand, never has and never will. You cannot crucify an idea. You can nail a man's hands, but you cannot nail justice. You can silence a voice, but you cannot silence the generation that heard that voice. You can bury a body, but you cannot bury love above all. Because love does not stay in the grave. They buried a man on Friday, and a rebellion walked out on Sunday. Not in a body, in us. in communities like this one, in people who decided that the most dangerous, most radical, most revolutionary act available to human beings is to keep loving when the world tells you to stop, to keep showing up when the powerful tells you you're finished, to keep setting the table when they keep trying to burn it down. That is the resurrection. Resurrection looks like the women whose names the powerful tried to erase. Resurrection looks like the women who stayed at the cross with Jesus when the men ran in fear. The women who showed up at dawn, who said, "We're not finished yet." Resurrection started not with a miracle. It started with the courage of the grieving, with people who had every reason to walk away and instead chose to walk towards. And they took what they had seen and heard through Jesus, the meals, the teachings, the radical table fellowship, the scandalous inclusion, and they kept doing it. They kept eating with the excluded. They kept speaking truth to power. They kept insisting that the logic of empire, accumulation, domination, exclusion, punishment is not the final word on what human life is for. The movement survived. Not because of what Rome did to Jesus. The movement survived because of what the movement refused to stop doing in his name. That is resurrection. That is love above all, refusing to die. That resurrection is not over. That resurrection is happening right now in this room, in this community. Empire is not ancient history. Empire is a spirit. Empire is what happens when power decides some people count and some people don't. When the strong look at the vulnerable and say, "You're on your own." When walls go up, walls of laws, walls of policy, walls of silence, walls to keep the wrong people out and the right people afraid. Rome knew how to do this. Rome scapegoated foreigners, criminalized the poor, silenced prophets, and dressed it all up in the language of order, strength, and greatness. But empire always overplays its hand. Because empire can pass a law, but it cannot pass a conscience. It can build a wall, but it cannot wall off compassion. It can silence a voice, but it cannot silence conviction living in the chest of those who know that love above all is not just a slogan, it's a battle cry. We do not fight empire with empire's weapons. We answer hate with love that refuses to shrink. We answer walls with doors that refuse to close. We answer erasure with dignity extended to everyone that they are trying to forget. A movement can be crucified, but it cannot be killed. It can be beaten, but it cannot be silenced. So right here, right now, we are a rebel faith community. We carry that word rebel not as an insult, but as a badge. Because the man we follow was the greatest rebel who ever lived. He rebelled against indifference. He rebelled against religious gatekeepers. Rebelled against a theology that said some people belong and some people don't. Jesus built a longer table, and now we're carrying that same hammer. Love above all is not a slogan. It's a covenant. It is a declaration of war against every system, every structure, every theology that tried to put conditions on who is worthy of love. Love above all is our answer to every empire, ancient and modern, that has ever tried to tell us who counts and who doesn't. Love above all means we keep the table long when the world tells us to shorten it. Love above all means we do not turn away people the powerful has discarded. Love above all means that when they come for our LGBTQ plus siblings, when they used the name of Jesus to condemn the people who Jesus would have eaten dinner with. We do not cower. We do not retreat. We do not mumble and apologize. We say, not on our watch. And we say, come to this table. We say love above all, and we mean it with everything we have. This is our rebel faith. A rebel faith does not bow. A rebel faith does not whisper. A rebel faith does not shrink when the powerful gets loud. A rebel faith gets louder. Here is the proclamation. There is a resurrection of justice happening right now. Every time this community stands up for the person that the empire forgot about, the immigrant, the poor, the unhoused, the one the system has written off, that is justice rising from the grave they dug for it. Jesus went to the cross for justice, not in some mystical transaction, in the most human way possible. He refused to stop telling the truth about power. And power did what power does. But justice did not die on that hill. It multiplied. And every time we refuse to be quiet about who is being excluded, quiet about who is being crushed, quiet about who is being forgotten, justice is resurrected. Love above all means justice first, justice always, and justice for everybody. Not only is there a resurrection of justice, there is a resurrection of love happening right now. Every time someone walks through those doors expecting to be turned away for who they are and found instead a room full of people who said, welcome home, you belong here. Every time that they have walked in and felt the rejection of other churches, afraid of what would happen to them in this room, and felt the love, embrace, and true welcome of this community, that is love rising. Every time we decided that our LGBTQ plus siblings are not political positions, but our people, our family, our beloved, that is the most ancient, most unkillable teaching in this tradition that has been made flesh. They tried to bury this love. Empire tried to bury it. Religious establishment tried to bury it. The critics from the left and the right tried to bury it. And yet love keeps getting up. Love above all is the heartbeat of the rebellion that Jesus started, and we are continuing. And finally, there is a resurrection of hope happening right now. Some of us are tired, for the work of justice is heavy. Some of you paid a real price to be in this room today. You paid it in the grief of being condemned for loving people the powerful decided are unworthy of love. And I see you. And I need you to hear me. Hope is not just optimism. It's not naive. Hope is the stubborn, defiant, rebel faith conviction that the last word has not been spoken, that the story is not over, that the table is not yet full. That love, that fierce, costly, boundary-breaking love is stronger than every force that has ever tried to silence it. They could not keep hope in the grave. They cannot keep this movement in the grave either. Hope is alive in this room. Here is our Easter commission, and it's a difficult one. Go home today and love somebody it costs you something to love. Go home today and set a table that makes the room uncomfortably full. Go home today and refuse to be silent. Not because you're angry, because love above all demands your voice. The rebellion Jesus started was not finished on Good Friday. It was not finished on Easter Sunday some 2,000 years ago. It was handed to every generation that came afterwards, handed to the women who showed up at dawn, to Philip and the scattered communities who kept meeting in borrowed rooms. And it has been handed to us. What we carry is not a burden. It's a fire that the empire could not put out, a fire that religious gatekeepers cannot extinguish, a fire that fear cannot drown, because you cannot crucify fire, you cannot bury it, you cannot seal a stone across it and walk away satisfied. Love burns, love spreads, love finds every crack and every wall that has been built to contain it, and it pours through those cracks. We are the continuation of the rebel faith. We are the resurrection of justice, the resurrection of love, the resurrection of hope. And our rebel faith, our defiant, beautiful, costly, human rebel faith will not be silent. Not today, not tomorrow, and not ever.